I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am, laying it all out because I really don't know what else to do. My name's Mike, and for the past 10 years I thought I had the perfect life. Married to Emily, a woman I loved, or at least I thought I did. We had a nice house, 2 kids, good jobs, the whole picture. I always believed we were solid, that she was my partner, my best friend. But things started to change about 6 months ago, subtle at first, like her being a little distant, more secretive about her phone, but I brushed it off. I figured everyone gets busy, everyone has their own stuff going on. I wasn't paranoid, not yet. But then the little things started piling up. She began to be more defensive if I asked her where she was or who she was texting. She'd brush it off, say she was just catching up with friends or doing work late nights. I didn't want to believe it, but I could see the cracks. She'd get irritated if I tried to look at her phone, even when I wasn't invading. Her privacy, honestly, I just wanted to see if I could catch her in a lie. I never thought I'd be one of those guys snooping around, but I felt something was off. One night I came home early from work. I had a gut feeling and I just wanted to surprise her. That's when I saw her. She was in our bedroom, not just with her phone, but with her laptop open, typing away. She looked tense, like she knew I was coming. I quietly stepped into the room, and that's when I saw it. Her email account was open on the screen, and there was a string of messages with someone named Tom. The way she talked about Tom, kind of overly friendly, a little flirty, it made my stomach turn. She kept calling him my business friend, but the tone was different. There was something more there, I could tell. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. The messages weren't just about work. There were plans for dinners, jokes about meeting up after work, and even talks about getting out of the house together. I saw her mention his name, how she loved the way he looked at her, how they shared special moments when no one was around. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I still remember feeling numb, my hands trembling, my mind racing. That's when I realized she'd been sleeping with Tom for over a year, and she'd lied about everything, about her friendship, about her life. It hit me hard. All those little lies, the secrets she kept, the times I felt something was wrong but ignored it, all of it was because she was hiding something big. I felt betrayed in a way I can't even put into words. How could she do this? How could she lie so convincingly? My wife, the woman I married and trusted, had been unfaithful, and not just with some random guy. It was Tom, her neighbor, someone I'd said hello to 100 times, never suspecting a thing. My world was crashing down, and I had no idea what to do with these feelings of anger, hurt, and confusion all tangled up inside me. The worst part, she was still there, unaware I'd seen everything. I was standing there, staring at her screen, knowing everything was about to change forever. I didn't say a word at first. I just stood there watching her, feeling like I was in some terrible nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My mind was racing, trying to process what I'd just seen. She was so oblivious, so confident in her little lies, that she didn't even notice I was in the room. I kept thinking about all the times she said she loved me, how she kissed me goodnight, how she looked in my eyes and told me I was the only one. All of it was fake. Everything was a lie. I stepped back quietly, not wanting to blow my cover just yet. I needed to think, to plan. I had to figure out what to do next. Part of me wanted to scream, to break things, to confront her right then and there. But I knew better. I knew that wouldn't help. So I played it cool, pretending I hadn't seen anything, while in reality my mind was exploding with rage and heartbreak. Over the next few days, I kept that secret to myself. It was like carrying a heavy weight around all the time. Every time she left the house, I felt sick, wondering if she was with him. I caught myself staring at her phone, her messages, trying to catch her in a lie or see if she slipped up. But she was slick. She'd hide her tracks well. Still, I noticed how her phone would ring more often, how she'd suddenly become more flirtatious when she was around him. It was obvious she was trying to keep her affair hidden, but I knew the truth now. One afternoon, I found myself in the garage, just sitting in my truck, looking at her car keys. I was already planning what to say, how to confront her, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. I couldn't just blow up and ruin everything without a plan. I had to get proof, evidence, something solid that I could use. I wanted her to see I wasn't some fool she could keep lying to. I had to make her feel the pain she'd put me through. That's when I decided I'd follow her next time she went out, see where she was really going, who she was meeting. That night, I waited until she left, then quietly followed her in my car. She went to some fancy restaurant downtown, and I parked a few blocks away, watching her walk in with Tom. I saw them laughing, holding hands under the table. It made me sick. I couldn't believe she'd been living this lie for so long, hiding this life with him right in front of me. That's when I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just let her get away with this. Not after everything. When she came back home later that night, I was already waiting in the living room. She looked surprised, but she quickly put on her bitchy attitude, trying to dismiss it all. That's when I finally snapped. I told her I knew about Tom, about everything. Her face twisted into this ugly sneer like she didn't care. She said I was overreacting, that it was just sex, that Tom was just a business friend, and that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. She even called me insecure, told me I was imagining things, but I'd caught her red-handed. I had proof. Every message, every detail. The confrontation got heated fast. She started yelling, calling me paranoid, controlling, insecure. She said she was just bored, that Tom was a distraction from her boring life with me. I felt like I was drowning in her lies, but I stood my ground. I told her I was done, that I couldn't trust her anymore, and that I was going to figure out what to do next. She spat at me, told me I was an idiot, and stormed out of the house, leaving her phone behind, of course, which I kept. I was furious but also numb. I finally saw her for what she was, a manipulative, lying bitch who'd been screwing around with our neighbor for over a year, and I had no idea. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out how I got here, how my life fell apart so suddenly. I felt so betrayed, so broken. I wondered if I ever really knew her, or if I'd just been fooling myself all these years. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, she was a stranger now. And Tom. I could only imagine what he thought when I confronted her, knowing he'd been sleeping with my wife behind my back. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about it. Honestly, I didn't know how I was going to get through this, but I knew I had to figure out my next move fast. After she stormed out that night, I stayed in the living room for a long while, staring at the door she just walked out of like it was some barrier between me and the nightmare I was living. I felt numb. Almost nothing registered except this deep, raw pain. I kept asking myself how I could have missed all the signs, how someone I trusted for so long could just throw everything away like it was nothing. The anger was there, sure, burning in my chest, making my hands clench into fists, but mostly I just felt crushed, like my entire world had crumbled in a few seconds. The next day, I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I had to gather more evidence, get a clearer picture of just how deep her lies went. I spent hours going through her phone, her emails, and her social media. I wanted to understand exactly how long this had been going on, how many lies she'd told me, how much of my life was just a carefully constructed illusion. Turns out, I wasn't wrong. The messages with Tom weren't just a couple of flirty texts. They were full-blown conversations about meeting up, sneaking around, planning trips that I never knew about. She was even talking about how easy it was to lie to everyone, how she'd always keep her options open, and how she wanted to enjoy her freedom now. Reading that made my stomach churn. I felt like I was sitting in a pit, staring at a future I didn't want anymore. I knew I had to make some decisions fast. I wasn't going to let her walk over me, not after what I'd found out. I started calling a lawyer, figuring out what my rights were, what I needed to do to protect myself and the kids. Because this wasn't just about betrayal, it was about my dignity, my sanity. I also called a few friends I trusted, just to get some perspective. Most of them told me to file for divorce right away to get her out of my life, but part of me still wasn't ready to give up completely. I needed to see her face, hear her lie again, confront her directly. That afternoon, I decided I'd go home and have a serious talk with her. I wanted her to explain herself, to tell me why she did it, why she thought she could get away with it. I also wanted her to realize I wasn't some fool she could manipulate anymore. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch, looking like she hadn't slept. Her eyes darted around when she saw me, like she was trying to gauge how much I knew. I could see the guilt written all over her face, but she still tried to act defiant. "You don't understand, Mike," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "It's not what you think, it's just sex, just a stupid mistake. Tom's not that special, I swear. I don't even love him. I was bored, tired of the same old routine. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her words were so typical, the "it's just sex," the "I was bored," the "it doesn't mean anything." I knew better. I knew she was lying. I told her I read her messages, that I saw how much she cared for Tom, how they planned their little secret meetings. Her face twisted in anger, then frustration. She accused me of spying on her, of invading her privacy, of not trusting her. She said I was paranoid and jealous, that she never did anything to hurt me, that I was overreacting. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. My heart felt like it was breaking, but I also felt this surge of rage. How dare she sit there and deny everything after I had seen the truth with my own eyes? The more she lied, the more I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I told her I was done, that I couldn't keep living in a lie. I told her I was going to leave, that I needed space to think. She kept yelling, calling me names, trying to guilt-trip me into staying, but I knew I had to walk away. I needed to step back, breathe, and figure out what the hell I was going to do next. I left her sitting there fuming, and I walked out the door without looking back. I haven't gone back since. That night I slept in my car, just parked outside. I stared at the sky, trying to make sense of everything. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut over and over again. The woman I loved, the woman I married, she was gone, replaced by this stranger who'd been sleeping with Tom for over a year. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How did I not see this coming? Was I blind, or was I just too damn naive? I don't know. All I know is that I'm hurt, angry, and almost broken. But at the same time, I'm starting to realize I deserve better. I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who doesn't lie to my face. The hardest part now, deciding what comes next. Do I try to fix this? Do I fight for my marriage, or do I walk away? I can't unsee what I've seen, but part of me still loves her, or maybe I just love the idea of us. Whatever it is, I know. Need to find some clarity fast, because living in this state of chaos, wondering if she's sleeping with Tom right now, is killing me. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I threw myself into sorting out the mess, trying to get some clarity. I couldn't keep living with the constant ache of betrayal, but at the same time, I kept feeling this weird mix of anger and sadness. Every time I thought about her, about Tom, about how she'd lied for so long, it made me want to scream. But then I also felt this deep loneliness, like I'd lost part of myself. Honestly, I've never felt so lost in my life. I spent hours talking to my lawyer, trying to figure out how to protect my rights and what I needed to do to get through this. She had no idea I was gathering evidence and planning everything, so I kept quiet about that. I started documenting everything: text messages, emails, even pictures of her receipts from that restaurant she kept going to with Tom. I knew I needed proof if I wanted to get a fair shot at custody, and I also wanted her to know I was just going to roll over and accept her lies. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. Meanwhile, I also reached out to a few friends, guys I trusted, people I knew would give it to me straight. Most of them told me the same thing: get out, file for divorce, and don't ever look back. One of my buddies, Dave, said something that stuck with me. You gotta think about your kids. Whatever you do, make sure they're protected. And don't be afraid to walk away from someone who clearly isn't worth your time. That made me realize I'd been holding on to hope that maybe she'd come to her senses, but I knew deep down that wasn't going to happen. I also started thinking seriously about what I wanted for myself. I was tired of feeling like I was just surviving. I needed to figure out how to move on, to rebuild. That meant talking to a therapist, which I'd avoided for years. But honestly, I needed help making sense of all these feelings. I felt so betrayed, so angry, and yet I still loved her enough to want an explanation. I couldn't understand how someone I trusted so completely could throw it all away like that. One evening, I sat her down again. I had to tell her what I was planning, what I was doing behind her back. She was surprised, but her attitude was still defiant. She told me I was overreacting, that I was just jealous, that what she did didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I looked her in the eyes and told her she'd crossed a line, that I was done being her fool. I told her I'd gather all the evidence I needed, and that I was going to file for divorce unless she wanted to come clean, be honest, and do the right thing. She laughed, called me a fool, and said I was just making this into a bigger deal than it was. But I knew better. I knew I was done playing her game. I told her I'd be serving her papers soon, and she could either face reality or keep lying to herself. That was the last time I saw her face to face before I left the house for good. I packed some clothes, took the kids' clothes, and moved into a friend's place for a while. I felt like I was in a fog. Part of me wanted to break down, but I couldn't afford to. I had to be strong for my kids, for myself. Every moment I wasn't working or planning was just me reeling from the shock, trying to keep myself together. That night, lying in someone else's guest room, I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything I'd lost. My trust, my marriage, my sense of stability. It all seemed so fragile now. I kept asking myself how I could rebuild from this, how I could look at my kids and not feel like the worst father in the world for not seeing what was happening. I wanted to hate her, but part of me still felt that flicker of love. It was like a poison, knowing she'd betrayed me so completely. I couldn't sleep, and when I did, I kept waking up from nightmares of her and Tom, of her lying there, smiling, while I was left in the dark. I guess the one thing I've learned so far is that people can hide so much behind a pretty face and a warm smile. I thought I knew her, but I was wrong. Now I just feel like I have to start over. It's going to be a long road, I know that, but I also know I'm done with her lies. I want peace, I want honesty, and I want to be with someone who truly respects me. That's what I deserve. The question now is whether I'll ever find that again, or if I've lost it all forever. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Every morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, and every night I went to bed with 1,000 thoughts racing through my mind. I had to keep everything together for the kids, which was no small feat. They didn't understand what was happening, but I could see the confusion and sadness in their eyes, and that crushed me even more. I felt like I was losing my grip on everything I'd built. My marriage, my sense of stability, my very identity. I spent most of my days coordinating with my lawyer, trying to get everything in order for the divorce. I wanted her to understand I wasn't just walking away without consequences. I had proof of her affair, proof of her lies, and I was prepared to fight for custody of the kids. I knew she'd try to manipulate everything, but I also knew I had to stay calm. If I let anger take over, I'd lose control, and I couldn't afford that now. I was doing everything by the book, but sometimes I'd catch myself staring at her old pictures, wondering if I'd ever really known her or if I'd been just another chapter in her lie. One day I got a call from her. I didn't expect to hear from her so soon. My heart was pounding when I saw her number pop up on the screen. I hesitated, but I answered. Her voice was cold, sharp, like she was trying to be the person she thought I wanted to see, but it was obvious she was upset. She demanded to know what I was doing, accused me of trying to ruin her life, and told me she was going to fight me for the kids. She insisted she loved them and that I was just trying to destroy her. I stayed quiet, listening to her bullshit, and then I told her what I thought, that she'd betrayed everyone, that she'd lied to me for over a year, and that I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out of this. She hung up without saying another word, but the damage was done. That phone call made me realize she was still trying to control the situation, still lying and denying everything. I knew I had to be prepared for her next move because she was dangerous in her own way, desperate and willing to do whatever it took to keep her secrets. I also started to think about my future. I had no idea what was going to happen with the divorce, with the kids, or even with myself, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this chaos. I needed to find a way to heal, to rebuild whatever was left of my dignity. In the meantime, I started going to therapy. It was tough at first, admitting that I'd been so blind, so naive, but talking to someone who listened without judging helped a lot. I also started working out more, trying to clear my head, and I even took a few days off work to just get some space from everything. I knew the hardest part was still ahead, confronting her in court, fighting for my rights and figuring out whether I wanted to try again someday or cut ties completely. Every day was a new challenge, but I refused to let her win completely. I was determined to rebuild my life, even if that meant starting over from scratch. Then, out of nowhere, I discovered some shocking new evidence. A hidden folder on her old laptop, full of messages she thought she'd deleted. There were even plans for her to leave the house permanently with Tom, to start fresh somewhere else, leaving everything behind. That was the final nail in the coffin for me. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, not in any capacity. It was clear she'd been planning her escape for a while, and I was just another pawn in her game. That realization made me more determined than ever to fight for custody, for my dignity, and for my sanity. I wasn't going to let her take everything from me without a fight. Now I sit here, reflecting on everything that's happened. I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. I finally see her for what she truly was, someone willing to destroy everything we had for her own selfish needs. Honestly, I feel like I've been given a second chance to start fresh, to find someone who actually cares, and to rebuild my life on my own terms. It's not easy, and I don't know what the future holds yet, but I do know one thing: I'm done with her lies. I just want peace now, even if I have to fight for it. And maybe someday I'll find happiness again. The final weeks have been a blur of court dates, legal battles, and emotional exhaustion. I won custody of the kids, which I never thought I'd see myself doing, but I knew they needed stability, and I wasn't about to let her or Tom take that away from them. The divorce is pretty much finalized now. She's moved out, and I've been slowly trying to put the pieces of my life back together. It's strange, really. It feels like I've been given this brutal wake-up call, a slap across the face that shattered my entire world. But in the wreckage, I found a strange sense of clarity. Looking back, I realize I wasted so much time trying to hold onto a life that was built on lies. I was so blind because I loved her, because I wanted to believe she was who she said she was. But the truth finally hit hard enough that I couldn't ignore it anymore. She was a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself and her own desires. And Tom, I can't even think about him without feeling bile rise in my throat. I still see their faces sometimes, that sneer she gave me when I confronted her, that smug look she had when she thought she was getting away with everything. But I also realize that I'm better off without her. I've started therapy, and honestly, it's been a lifesaver. It's helped me process all the pain and anger, and most importantly, it's helped me forgive myself for not seeing the signs earlier. I've learned that I deserve someone honest, someone who respects me, someone who values the vows we took. I'm not ready to jump into anything new yet, but I know I will be someday. For now, I'm just focusing on healing, on making sure my kids feel loved and safe, and on building a new life for myself, one based on truth and integrity. This whole experience has changed me in ways I can't fully explain. I've become more cautious, more aware of the red flags I might have missed before. But I've also become stronger. I no longer feel like a victim. Instead, I see myself as someone who survived something terrible and is still standing. That's a victory in itself. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also pushes you to find your inner strength, to realize what truly matters. And what matters most to me now is honesty, trust, and respect. Things I thought I had with her, but turns out I never really did. So yeah, I guess I'm at the beginning of a new chapter. It's scary, and I won't pretend it's easy, but I'm finally taking control of my life again. I've learned that some people aren't worth fighting for, and sometimes the only way to move forward is to walk away from everything that no longer serves you. I hope my story serves as a warning and a reminder: don't ignore the signs and never settle for a lie. Trust is fragile, and when it's broken, it's damn hard to fix. But you can survive, and eventually you'll find your peace again.